Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Insurance Town. I am the mayor, Heath Shearon, and I'm the host of this podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, I just got through recording a pretty fabulous episode. I can't wait for you to check it out. This episode is sponsored by my good friends over at Smart Choice, the fastest growing agency network, hands down. Smart Choice wants to be there for you. They want to do the right things. They want to help you, whether it's getting markets, whether it's writing new business, whether it's finding a place or a home for a unique risk that you have. And they have great relationships across the board. Carriers love them with $11 billion in written premium. 10,000 agencies. Tell them the mayor sent you. You'll be happy you did. Also, my good friends over at Canopy Connect. Use canopy.com/Heath. Make sure you go check that out and look into the intake forms. They're no longer, I shouldn't say no longer, there's so much more than, I should say it that way. There's so much more than just a one-click solution to getting your deck pages. And now they do so much more with intake forms. They do so much more with the onboarding. They do so much more to help you and your agency and your prospects to just have a better experience and to have your staff have a better experience. Guys, you got to check it out. I can go on and on and on about my sponsors. I love them so much. Thank you so much. Also, it's not too late. Jump in there, get some good marketing going, whether it's direct mail or digital marketing. Go to oldschoolmarketing.com. Guys, I'm going to slide out of the way as quickly as I can because I want you to check out this conversation with my good friend, Kimiko Donahue. Kimmy, what's going on, sis? How are you?
Hello, doing awesome. I'm actually drinking coffee at 5:30 in the evening because that's how I roll.
And that's dangerous, man. I
Oh yeah.
actually, I've done it several times, but there's a lot of times I'll think that's a smart idea. And then I'm like, why am I not asleep at 3 o'clock in the morning? And I'm like, oh, I forgot I had
When
a
I have a
coffee.
lot of work to do, it seems to help. It helps me
Yeah.
focus. If I think there's been studies that anyone that's maybe got ADHD or ADD
Yep.
or whatever, that caffeine actually kind of calms you down. That's me.
Me too. They church it up and call it Ritalin, but I think it's just crushed up coffee, but
Right?
whatever.
Coffee beans.
That's exactly right. So, yeah. So that's awesome. So coffee at 5:30.
Oh
Big
yeah.
plans tonight as far as work goes. You working on anything special or exciting right now? Or are you just kind of doing some client stuff?
Actually, yeah, I'm super excited. I have I would have said first speaking engagement, but a bunch of them have just been kind of rolling in locally. But I have a big
Yeah.
one in Nashville, Tennessee next month
Ooh.
with the Young Agents Conference for the Big I, Tennessee.
Yeah.
And so I'm
Awesome.
doing a
The
keynote and a
insurers of
workshop.
Tennessee.
hmm Yeah, I'm
That
doing
is
my first
awesome.
keynote and workshop, so I've been prepping for that and practicing and getting ready for that. I'm super excited.
That is awesome. So y'all need to go make sure you check her out. If you're in Nashville listening, go to Insurers of Tennessee conference. It's a good one.
Come
I've
on
been to that one
down.
multiple times, man. It's a good one.
Awesome.
They do a really good job. So tell me, let's take a walk down memory lane. Tell me a little bit about who Kimiko. I like Kimiko. I think that just sounds cool. But tell me who Kimmy is and what brought you up to where you are today and what you're doing.
Oh goodness. We
Kimiko.
will be here all night if I go all the way back memory lane. I think
We don't have to
for
make it weird to go to birth, but we can at least
right?
go a little bit.
Yeah, I think starting, getting into the insurance industry since,
Yeah.
that's where a lot of our background is. I started super young at 20 years old and just kind of fell into it like most of us, right? When none of us
Yeah.
rolled out of bed and thinking, "Oh, I'm going to do insurance." I was working at a car wash at the time, being a ticket writer saying, "Hey, would you like to add tire shine to that?" Our Super Clean's $29.99 today. I still got my scripts. It's awful.
That's
I got
hilarious.
into insurance, into property casualties, started as a CSR, started learning more about the sales side of it. I had a background in sales. I sold motorcycles, sold car washes, and I found that selling insurance was much more exciting to me than just doing the admin work.
Right.
And got invited to open up my own American Family Agency. So I've been in the captive world for
Yeah.
quite some time as well. And then switched over to independent because I found out that you've got a lot of options that way. And a lot of my referral partners said, "Kimmy, you need more options." So in between that, I played a small corporate role as well. And the independent agency is where life changed.
Yeah.
I started the agency from scratch, didn't buy anything. It was crazy. I downsized everything to get this thing started, lived like I was broke because I was. And right around COVID time, obviously not planned because none of us knew that was happening, brought on a business partner. So 2 weeks before COVID, it partnered up with a real estate company. The world shut down, but business just got crazy awesome. People were still buying and selling homes. We did a lot of personal lines at first and grew it to the point where we decided, hey, we want to part ways. We're still friends, so it was a good breakup if you want to call it that. And we
Yeah.
ended up selling our agency. So I had a successful exit in 22. And also, when I did that, I was like, oh, what am I going to do in the meantime? I didn't want to just sit around. So luck had it that Openly was looking for a territory rep at the time, and I already had purple hair. Like I already was on brand for this. Took a role
Yeah.
with them for a couple of years and loved it. I got to see kind of what happens behind the curtain as a rep, and I have a whole new respect for ASMs, territory reps, whatever
Yeah.
whatever your role is with the carrier and underwriters. I was like, oh my goodness, learning about what happens on the underwriting side. I I would really encourage agents to go and interview some of your underwriters and reps, kind of what happens behind the scenes. It will make you such a better partner in
100%.
understanding what their goals are. So anyway, I'm going on a tangent with that. Learned so much in that role and absolutely love that company. And as if anyone's listening, if you've worked for yourself, it you start to miss it. And so I decided to hop back in the fire. I bought a small book, so I own an agency again. I started a small meal prep company in Tucson, Arizona because I wanted to be eating healthy and wanted to offer
Yeah.
that opportunity to others. And my most recent venture is coaching because I really enjoy helping people have their big aha moments.
That is awesome. So much to unpack there for me.
Yeah.
Because I too have worked on the carrier side. I've owned an agency, sold an agency, done the things. But one of the biggest transformational moments for me as well was going to work for a large carrier, regional carrier for nearly 10 years or right at 10 years. And again, like you said, I learned so much about, how the sausage is made or the donuts are made or whatever you want to call it, because you get to see how they think and what they think, how they evaluate agencies and how they look at certain things. And so many times when I was agency owner, I just like, oh, it's us versus them, or they don't understand, or they just want to say no. And then once you get behind that curtain a little bit, like, oh no, it's not that way.
Mhm.
And you start to think like an underwriter and think like a territory rep because you are one, but and start understanding that a little bit more. When I got back into the agency world again, it helped me to realize, oh, this is a good risk for this carrier because of this or whatever, and this won't fit here because of this. And they start thinking, or, you start understanding more how to get to profit sharing quicker or how to, attract certain things for a carrier or how to get to top of the pile for that matter. I don't know. I agree with
100%.
you on that. And it helped me so much.
Yeah, I think what was the big aha moment for me was realizing like if you treat your territory reps as if they were like pharmaceutical reps. Now, not, put big pharma aside. The reason I'm
All
using
right.
this analogy is as an agent, you're the doctor, right? You're prescribing options for your clients, and it's up to you to lean on your reps on their expertise because they're the ones living and breathing that product. Like to this day, unless they've changed drastically, I could still tell you everything about an Openly policy because that was my
Yeah.
specialty. I was talking about it every single day. So as an
Yep.
agent, as an independent agent with let's say 40, 50 different carriers that you're representing, it's helpful to have a partner that can come in and tell you, hey, here's our updates, here's what we're looking for, here's changes, and staying on top of that too. I think it's important, even for reps listening, to stay in front of your agents because they
Yeah.
do have all of those options and they're not looking at your product every single day like you are. So it just really drove home that relationship piece for me.
It really did for me as well. And, again, not to rabbit trail too much on this, but one of the things for reps that are listening, because I know I have a lot that are listening, you know, so many reps I see, that I've consulted with or talked to have done it in a way of they only go see the principals. And I would say, what made me different as a rep and helped me, I think, was building relationships with CSRs, building relationships with producers, building relationships with everyone in the agency, not just going in, passing all of the CSRs and the producers to go into the big office. I would like to stop and sit and visit and talk to them. And, I may grab them for lunch instead of taking the principal every time. Or I would say,
Yeah.
hey, I would text, ahead of time and just be like, hey, what's your coffee order? And I may bring them Starbucks or I may bring them whatever. And building those relationships, really helped a lot for them and me to understand, because they're the ones, not to say that principals don't do the work, but they're the ones every day in the muck. They're the ones that are, seeing the submissions and seeing, what's coming in and talking to the people that are, my rates just went up this month. Why? Or, why did I have this happen? Or I had a claim and your claims team didn't do this or did do this or whatever. And so I just
Yep, they're
found for
getting all
me,
that feedback.
yeah. And so for me, I found it helped me a lot. And I think I had better reception from those people, and they would be happy to see me come in instead of sometimes the rep, the principal might be like, another rep meeting.
Right. Yeah.
Because, who wants to like wake up every morning? Oh man, I can't wait to see all my marketing reps today and not write any business, but meet with people all day. But anyway,
Exactly. I feel like before COVID, we would and when we had a physical office, like we would get all the vendors, the windshield representatives, the
yeah.
restoration
Oh yeah.
companies. And it's actually part of why I got into the meal prep space is because a lot of the vendors would bring donuts or cookies, or you'd
Ah,
start going out to networking events and eating garbage. And I'm like, okay, let's reel this in.
yeah. Great
Yeah.
idea. Yeah. 100%. Okay. And so talk to me real quick about, because I'm always fascinated by this, the ones that have come from the captive side to the independent. And I know everyone says the same thing of like, oh, I saw the light and went to the independent side. But all that being said, there's a lot that we can learn from the captive training. And there's a lot that is to be said for those. I've seen a lot of successful independents that got trained by Big Red or Big Blue or whatever
Yes.
color it might be. And I would love to hear from you if I'm right or wrong in that first. And number two, like, what was one of the biggest things that you learned from that you carried into even today?
I love this because I've found that a lot of people that do come from the captive world into independent space sell more on value because that's what they were used to. I think people that got straight into the independent world, it's sold to you as, hey, you can shop the best rate. So now that's all that's in front of you. When you
Yeah.
come from, so I worked for both Big Red and Big Blue. I guess there's a lot of different blues, but
Right.
State
Right.
Farm
Right.
and AmFam, we'll give them names because I loved them
Yeah.
both.
Yeah.
And State Farm, they anyone listening that's worked for State Farm, like they still used DOS systems, so like you had to get real good at keystrokes and all that
Yeah.
jazz. And it was very, very value based because their rates weren't always the greatest.
Sure.
And same thing with American Family. There were times where we were actually rocking, and it was easy to sell on price. The beautiful thing about their training is they have to teach consultative selling because every carrier is cyclical. There's going to be years where they're rocking the rates and years that they got to, make up for that. So I feel like the training was really good because one, you're learning about one company's product. So now you're learning about all the ins and outs, all the endorsements, all the highlights. So you sound more like an expert because you really understand that.
Right.
And they bring in a lot of sales consultants and do, free trainings or things that are included in being part of that large company. I think some of the other benefits of being captive is you've also got this big name brand that you can also
Yes.
take with you. And I remember that was my first couple weeks being independent. I didn't even know that that would even be an obstacle or an objection. But I
Yeah.
remember, presenting a Safeco quote, which apparently is now not going to be Safeco, but that's
Yeah.
okay, this is a new objection. I had to explain to them, what financial ratings are and all of that. But anyway, yeah, I think captive, there's a lot of pros on both sides.
Yeah. You're singing my favorite tune right now, which is the value prop. And I have, been about the value prop for years before, I ever even understood what that meant, because I just feel like, you know, coming into the business, a second generation. So I didn't really have a choice. I tried to, but I didn't. I came in, I was like, all right, I'm doing this. So, but dad always taught me, you're selling yourself, you're selling value, you're selling, the right things instead of always price. Cause,
Mhm.
again, it's a saying now, but I didn't know that back, I was 21 years old, 20 years old of, sell on price, you lose on price. And now I hear it all the time. But back then, when I heard it the first time from my dad, I thought, oh, you're a genius, dad. Okay. And so I always came into it with that attitude. And I always look for ways, to bring value. And I was even that guy that, and you're probably the same way. And it's nothing new, but back 20 years ago, I thought it was of, I wanted to be the guy that my clients came to or prospects came to if they needed to get their tire changed, or they
Mhm.
need a good place to get an oil change, or what's the best restaurant in town, or I'm looking for a good CPA, or I need a good real estate agent, whatever it might have been. I wanted to be their one stop, like, Heath knows everything. Let's call Heath. And then when it came down to insurance, oh, well, Heath knows everything about insurance too. So let's call him. And if I couldn't help him with insurance, I didn't care. I just wanted to be that
The
guy.
resource, 100%. I think that's probably what made you successful. And it's funny enough, that's actually I'm literally talking on that exact topic in my next meeting after this to a group of life insurance agents about how to
Yeah.
set yourself apart. And it's exactly what you said. Be the person that knows where to go for everything, because then you have that excuse to have people call you. And I think the other beautiful thing, and I tell people, when you're networking and you're meeting other people, even if you may not directly do business with each other, there's going to be options for referrals and job opportunities for people too. I remember back when I was at AmFam, I had a client who was having trouble paying her bills, and I dug a little deeper, and I'm like, "Hey, is everything okay? This you haven't had this issue before." Turned out she lost her job. She was looking for an admin position, and I had two HVAC contractors who were literally looking for someone to just answer their phones.
Boom.
Boom, got her a job, and now she pays her
That's
bills. I kept the
phenomenal.
client, and she was able to pay her bills. So it was super
Dude,
cool.
that's phenomenal. That's what it's about. And that's just to me, like I've always just wanted to, try to be that person. And the other thing that I would say that helped me, and I'm sure again, you're the same way. A lot of people listen to this are the same way. It's nothing new, but those that don't do this, I would say start trying to, is as you're building, it's so easy. And when you're building your book, to get that desperation of, I got to write everybody. But one of the
Hmm.
things that, again, dad taught me, and again, I left my dad early on and started my own agency from scratch, similar to what you'd talked about. So again, there's so much there, but I wanted to be that guy that would turn away business. And people, my dad would be like, "You're an idiot. I just sent you somebody. Why didn't you write them?" Because dad's always been a life and health guy.
Hmm.
And so I was like, they weren't a good fit. And so I would tell them straight up, hey, there's an AMPAM agent down the street, or there's a State Farm, or there's an independent down the street that may have better opportunities for you. You're not a good fit for me, or we're not a good fit for you. And
Hmm.
I would find that later on, it would work out. Like I don't know how many times I would get a call from a referral and be like, hey, so and so told me that you couldn't write theirs, but you might be able to help me. And like, it wasn't ill will, and it
Yeah.
helped me to build the book I wanted instead of a bunch of trash that I didn't want, or not trash. I shouldn't say that way, but stuff that I didn't want, or stuff that
Hmm.
didn't
Yeah, just
fit.
stuff that didn't fit your criteria. Yeah.
And so I think that for me, and I've just always kept that naivete type of business, maybe of like, I'm just going to do the right thing, and God's going to take care of me, or the universe, or whatever you want to call it, will take care of me in the end. And, it doesn't matter. And so I don't know. I think it's easy. If you're listening right now, you're in that mode, especially in a hard market, you can turn away business and still grow. You
Hmm.
can fire clients and still grow. I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Absolutely. And I think it's goes back to just being clear on what you want.
Yeah.
If you want to build a business that you want to be able to sell for a certain multiplier, there's factors to be considered in that. If you want to be eligible for profit sharing, tons of factors to include in that as well. And I think getting into it at first, it was challenging for me to focus on those things because that was so for me that felt so far away. I'm just focused on how do I make my next check, especially when you're first starting. I just need to pay my mortgage. Like, how do I sell enough to just pay for that? And, as you scale and and the book grows, you start paying attention to those other factors, and being able to do this again, knowing what I know now has changed my entire business plan, compared to what I did before.
Dude, that is amazing. That's you speak. I'm trying not to write too much here because I don't want to not be able to read my handwriting. But anyhow, I love what you're saying, and I think it's crucial. And I'd love to know, like, from that, and everything that we've talked about even to this day. Like, you talk about you love coaching people, and I'm assuming that quite a few of those clients you're coaching now are not insurance agency owners. They may be other business owners, and
Hmm.
so there's obviously a large overlap there. And business is business, small business is small business. Are there certain things that you're focused on or coaching through right now? Because we think about it in the insurance industry, we're in a hard market. It only affects insurance, but this hard market's affecting so many other people, with, whether it's labor cost or, material cost, or people, everybody's dealing with distribution issues and everyone's dealing with something.
Hmm.
And I have a lot of friends in other industries that, we talk about hard market, it affects everyone. And it's so easy to get tunnel vision into insurance. Is there things
Sure.
that you're coaching and talking to people, outside of our industry
Actually,
or
this is my
ask her
favorite
this?
thing to talk
Okay.
about, because the first thing I pose a question of, have you ever known somebody that has made money in a down market? Most of us
Yeah.
do, right? And do we
Yeah.
know anyone that's lost money in a good market? So what that shows is it's up to us to do the activities or shift our business, or change our business plan if we even need to adapt to those things. So one of the fun analogies that I use is, if you're familiar with flying an airplane, for example. So being a pilot, the airplane is constantly course correcting, getting to its destination
Yeah.
constantly, because the wind's always changing, other factors. Maybe there's a bird. I know it's kind of a crazy subject to talk about, especially with the news lately and all the weird stuff happening in the air.
Yeah.
But with that, it's 99% course correction. And business and life is the exact same thing. So no matter what the market's doing, it just means we need to flex, or perhaps do more activity, or less, and focus on something different depending on what our goal is. So I think when I hear that, because I do work with a lot of people that, mentioned, well, the market's hard or things have been tightening up. Okay, well, what can we focus on? One, what can you control? And two, where are people winning? Because there's tons of agencies that are still doing amazing. And I will credit that to being on the carrier side, because I got to see that, on the other, as an outsider, not in the trenches at the time. And I got to see agencies that were thriving even when stuff was tightening up and non-renewals are going out, and things are on fire, right?
Yeah.
They still were growing. And
Yeah.
the difference that I saw was, one, they know that the market's hard, but they didn't let that affect their mentality around growth. They were continuing to hire and recruit. And I believe it's a mentality. They also set up their systems to still be able to do business regardless of what's happening on the outside.
And one of the things that you were talking about, and you've used this word several times, is on the outside. And we've talked about this a little bit today on the show, but like, it's easy for business owners that maybe aren't thriving in this type of market, or aren't thriving in this, to feel like they're on the outside. Like, what are they doing that's helping them? It kind of goes back to even you and I, we both have teenagers. It's kind of like going back to high school, like the cool kids versus the not cool kids or whatever. Like, what's making them so happy and so popular in this? And why do I feel like an outsider? And
Mhm.
business owners deal with that too. And we tell our kids that a lot too. Like, adults deal with this crap too. It's not just
Absolutely.
bullying in school or cool kids at school or whatever it might be. But how do you address that when you're talking to business owners that may feel like that outsider?
Yep. I think this is a great topic, because I was one of those people too, feeling like an outsider, where what helped me in business specifically was getting around people that were talking about business. So whether it is finding a mastermind group, creating your own mastermind group and inviting people that you want to model. The I can talk about the insurance industry specifically, because there are so many people in this industry that just want to help. They're not asking to get paid. Some of them do, and definitely respect that because there's some amazing coaches and amazing consultants in our industry. So I definitely want to respect that and also show that there's an important piece, and I'll touch on that in a second. If you are just starting and you don't have those resources yet, there are tons of people in this industry that will absolutely mentor you because they just love doing that. And I've been fortunate enough to be around a couple people like that that just literally poured value into me with no expectations back, and I will forever be thankful. And what's so cool about mentors, and we'll add coaches and consultants in here, is what they give you is a new perspective. Because just like you said, when we're in it, we're like this, right? We got tunnel vision. We're just focused on how do I get to the next step.
Yeah.
And somebody on the outside can peer in and say, "Oh, did you try this?" and just give you another perspective, And it it the cool part about reaching out to a mastermind group or having an accountability partner or a coach is then you no longer feel alone. You've got somebody that's literally on your side, wants to see you do well. They're your cheerleader, and it helps solve a lot of that feeling for sure.
So, it sounds to me like you've kind of carved out a little niche, so to speak, in your mind or in your business of helping those that feel like they might be on that outside. And it sounds like there may be some ways that they can use that to their advantage, or they might be able to use that as a superpower more than a crutch. What are some
Absolutely.
ways that you're talking to people about that?
Yeah, I think, well, it comes from my personal story. So I grew up with Tourette syndrome. I was diagnosed with learning difference, learning disability, whatever you want to call it. And it definitely made me feel like I didn't fit in. Like, so,
Yeah, I've battled with a lot of those same things. So
yeah. And
very cool. Go ahead.
a lot of people do. And
Yeah,
I'm finding that even if it isn't necessarily a diagnosed learning difference, everyone has struggles growing up, right? We
sure.
all have a story. We all have something that we had to overcome and, adversity in our lives, right? What what sticks out to me is I've experienced bullying and I've seen it happen to other people and it just boils my blood.
Yep.
And what fascinated me is it happens into our adult years too. I thought, "Oh, we outgrow that." Mm,
Nope.
no, not really. There's still that in the adult world, and some of us just stuff that down, and I was one of them. I just never addressed those emotions for the longest time, and then they rear their ugly head. So my goal is to help people that have that fire in them to want to prove themselves because I used that as fuel in my life in
100%.
everything. It made me competitive, and I attribute any and all of my success to that exact feeling was I'm here to prove myself. What's helped me with a lot of the emotions behind it was learning how to prove it to myself. I think that's what really helped me personally. And I want to help other people do that. That way they're living into their own values and their own goals rather than living on someone else's terms. I feel like I enjoy working with people that, for whatever reason, maybe they have a belief because someone told them something, and that's someone else's words, and now they've turned it into their own. And I think what's so special about that is I can relate to it. I've that's happened to me as well. And my goal is to help empower people that just want to break through that, limitations because we're all our own in our own way often. You just need that, whether it is a coach or a cheerleader or mentor, accountability partner, insert the blank to help you see a different perspective.
100%. So it's funny that we're on this conversation. I not to date the podcast, but if you want to go back to and find this on my LinkedIn someday, whenever you listen to this, but I posted today. I listen to a lot of podcasts outside the industry, and there's one called Smart List. If you haven't listened to it before, I highly recommend it after you listen to my episode, obviously. But anyway, no, there's one called Smart List. Jason Bateman, Will Arnett, and Sean Hayes, three of my favorite actors, and they're just great on a podcast. Anyway, they interviewed Jelly Roll this morning, who sings a song, called "I Am Not Okay," and
Mhm.
it's one of those things that it's always spoken to obviously a ton of people, but to me and a lot of people right now listening to this that are raising teenagers or that are facing a hard market or that are going through everyone's going through something. And I love that, he talks about, in his song, I don't know if you've ever listened to that song, if you even know who Jelly Roll is, but
I do love it,
uh
and actually, I heard it recently at a someone's celebration of life. It's
yes,
a song that can literally work for so many different
so
reasons.
many different reasons.
Yeah.
So, even when I'm talking to my, especially right now, getting personal about it with my kids that are struggling with whatever it might be, or their friends that are at the house. And then literally this morning, as I'm listening to this episode, and I put the song on for my kids after school, and I was like, "Have y'all heard this?" Like, of course, Dad. But he says, I know I can't be the only one, who's hanging on by a thread, or I can't be the only one, holding on for dear life. That's how it is. And the kids are just like, yeah, I mean, no, we're not the only one, but sometimes it can feel like you're alone. Sometimes it can feel like you're the only one hanging on for dear life. And, I'm not okay, but it's all going to be all right. And it's just like, again, so, music speaks to me. And I think God uses music to speak to me in a way that some people can't, or some other things can't. And so, and I think what you're saying is so true. And so many people do feel alone and they do feel outside. And it's so amazing that you have that as part of your your why of why you're doing your coaching, or part of your business plan, maybe, of I want to help those that need that, or
Mhm.
want that. And that's the other part of it is I think so many things that we try to help people with, they have to want it for themselves, and they have to want to be able to do some of those things. And I've coached people throughout my career that they talked about it, but they never truly wanted it. And I won't call anybody out in particular, but if you're listening, you probably know who you are, but you've got to want it for yourself too. And it sounds like you and I both come from that, cut from the same cloth of we wanted it, whether it was proved to ourselves or proved to somebody else, or,
Mhm.
Show an inner power or inner strength within you, whatever that might have been, we had that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that you bring up music. I've always had this belief that music is a universal language. It
100%.
it can bring out emotions. It can instill emotions. You can send a song to somebody and it give them this great message. And I actually, shame on me, failed to add that to the beginning of the intro. For those of you that don't know, I'm also a musician. I actually
Oh,
sing in a
wow.
couple of bands and really love heavy metal. I actually used to have a podcast and trying to revive it. If anyone knows Joe Hollier, we used to have a
Yes.
podcast called Metal Health, which was mental
Oh,
health
that's
and the
awesome.
love of metal. So maybe we'll
That
bring it
is
back.
funny.
I'm calling you out, Joe. We should restart
Yeah.
that.
So he and I did a podcast together. We were on somebody else's show, but man, it was actually, I'll call it, I don't care. It was on the Awkward Insurance podcast with my good friend Dustin Bryant. Yeah. So she
So
is
good.
a very close friend of mine. Who actually lives down the street from me in my hometown. And we did a podcast, and that dude talked so far over my head. I was like, you got to stop and break this down. And I sounded like the biggest moron. Luckily, it's called the Awkward Insurance Podcast because it's very awkward.
Perfect. I love it
But
already.
yeah, but anyhow, yeah, great guy. But yeah, so music, I'm the same way. And there's so many times that I'll pull in the driveway and I'll just be crying listening to a song, or whatever it might be, and the kids are like, "Dad, you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, just get out. Give me a minute. Let me get in my feels a minute, and y'all go do your
Yeah.
homework. I'll be in there in a minute and cook dinner." But there's just times like music can do that to me, whether it's a metal song, which I'm not really a metal guy, but or could be, a Christian song, or could be an R&B song, could be a pop song. I don't care what it is. It could be a country song for that matter. But if it hits me the right way, I'm liable to get all up in my feels real quick. And,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah, I
afraid
use
to,
music. Music's a great way to change your state too. Like
oh
lately
my
I've been on a reggae kick.
oh, nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I put it on in the background when I'm working. It keeps me kind of in the zone. It's very chill. It tends
100%.
to be upbeat, honestly, too. It's very like love life, love
Yeah.
God, love. It's really cool. It's really great positive energy.
Yeah. I've been wanting to see the Bob Marley movie, but anyhow,
Mhm.
yeah, I love that, that we have that as well in common. I don't know. I think that, yeah, just going back to, where we got onto that with, people often feel alone in that, and they're not. And again, I've been on this mental health kick lately. I don't know why, but I don't know. I think that's just, but been on my
I think it's
brain.
needed. I think it's needed. I think though a lot of people are hurting right now and need that place to go to.
Yeah. And I'm glad to know that there's someone like you out there that's helping coach people in that, whether they're in the industry or not. And that it's not something that, at least I don't see it. So I can brag on you for this. If I'm wrong, don't correct me, but you don't sit there and like, hey, come talk to me. I can help you solve your problems. It's not like something you advertise of, I'm going to be your mentor, your coach. You just are. And I think that's what makes you more genuine. If you just are that person, then, people will find that if that's what they need or what they want.
Yeah, I think it ties back to what we were just talking about even building your agency. Same thing with coaching. There's going to be some people that jive and some people that don't, and it's up to the coach to also be honest with that person about, hey, maybe this isn't a good fit. So being really clear on one, what kind of people you want to help with, what's the scope of your business. I've gone through actually, I guess almost 1,000 hours probably of certifications and training around this so that I
Mm-hmm.
can show up that much better in helping people because I'm not going to be able to help everybody. And that's actually something that I've really had to come to terms with because deep down inside, I wish I could help everyone and I want to
Ah,
be the giver. I want to be the let me just put my arms around you and help you or send you money. Like that's naturally
yeah.
that's what I want to do. I want to help fix things. And just to, repeat what you said before is they gotta want it. They gotta want it just as much as you want it for them and more. And that's really hard to I had a hard time grasping that. And I think it's because I'm just
Yeah.
so I want to help people so bad. I want to show them that there's ways out of that if you're feeling stuck, because there's days that I'm blue too. I think I want to do a big shout out to my mom because there was a time in my life, probably middle school years, where, you know, uh,
You're
middle
gonna make me
school's
cry because I will cry on a drop of a dime.
ah, don't because if
Anyhow,
you cry, I'll start crying. Well, you know what? That's
we'll
okay.
just
It's a
be
safe
empaths
space.
for a
Let's
minute.
go. So, middle school was weird for most people, probably. Definitely very
100%.
strange for me because I ended up going to a private school that was specifically designed for people with learning differences. And I really struggled academically and I got down on myself. Anyway, fast forward to about eighth grade, I felt super depressed. And my mom is one of the smartest people that I know. And I remember her telling me, you're not depressed, you just feel blue. All of us have moments that we feel blue. And I didn't realize it until much later. And when I mean later, I mean very recently, within the last 6 months, just how my mom taught me about not labeling things. Same thing when I had my diagnoses. She reminded me that, that doesn't change who I am. And she helped me not let it affect life. I just kept on doing life, and now I just have, more of a badge of honor that I've acquired. So, what really helped me with the point of my life where I was feeling super depressed, she reminded me that this is just a moment. I think it's so easy for us to think, especially when you got those heavy emotions, it just like the world feels like it's crumbling down on you. When someone reminds you that it's temporary and that it
Yep.
is just it's being blue. Like she said it's so cute to say it that way. You're not depressed, you're just blue. And even though everything in my world is purple, my favorite color is actually blue. Just fun fact. And I appreciate her for telling me that because I can now pass that on to other people who say, "Oh, I'm so depressed," or "I have all this anxiety."
Yeah.
They're putting this label on this feeling that is something that you're only going to feel it for just a short bit. The more you talk about it, the more you're going to feel it. So allow yourself to feel it and then move on to what's what you can control. What's going to get you out of that state.
Uh,
Yeah, it's
it's
huge.
crazy. It's crazy you said that. My wife and I talk about stuff like this a lot, and I've never heard anybody else use it. I mean, obviously I have in my life, but use blue. And my wife says that, I'll be just, hey, how you doing today? And she'll just be like, I'm just feeling blue.
Mm,
And I'm like, it took me at first, first 5 or 6 years of our marriage, I just never quite understood. I was like, oh, that's cute. But then the more I understood, it's like her letting me know Yeah, bro, I'm feeling blue. Like I need you to understand and be sensitive that I'm feeling blue. Like I just and so again, instead of labeling it or whatever, it was just the way it was,
Hmm.
and we don't have colors for every emotion, but that one when she says that, it's triggered. I'm like, okay, I get it. Time
Yep.
to clock in. I get it. Or we've worked out a system of like because we'll both have days. Was like, and she's like, okay, I got about 30%. Can you make up the other 70? The kids need 100 out of us. Can you make up the other 70? And I'm like, yeah, I got you. Or
That's awesome.
I'll be like, don't. And we'll just tell the kids, hey, mom and dad are at about 60%. So they need to step up and help around the house, do this, do that, take the kids here, do whatever. And it's just a thing that, we had to communicate with one another. But yeah, the blue thing triggered with me because I'd never heard that from anybody like besides like TV or whatever. But like, and my
Sure.
wife says blue, and I just like, huh. So
Yeah, I
kudos
get
to your
that. My
mom for that
mom
as well.
said that.
Shout out to
Yeah.
your
Thanks,
mom for
mom.
that. Yeah. And thanks for pouring into Kimmy in that way, because that's amazing that you're able to now pour that into my audience and the thousands of people that will be touched by that. It touches me as well. And so I appreciate that. And if I keep going, you're going to make me cry, damn it. And I don't want to.
Oh,
Actually, I like to cry. I'm
not
not
my
going to lie.
intention, but it's definitely allowed.
Totally.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing is, if like an ugly snot bubble cry, I can just edit it, so it's no big deal.
There you
But
go. I
uh,
get, yeah, that's how I cry too. I get it. So
no, I'm yeah, totally. The older I get, I'm that way. But okay, so all right, so talk to me. Okay, now, okay, we talked about your coaching and your agency life and whatnot. Now, from what it sounds like, you're jumping back into the agency world, 2 feet in, ready to rock and roll. Are
Mhm.
there things that you want to do differently or you plan to do differently than the past?
Yes. Yes, a lot different. We're focused on a lot more commercial insurance. Because one, I feel like now just with more experience and being just more mature in the field, I feel like I can talk to business owners much differently now than I did before. I
Mhm.
think the other things I had to get rid of was just some beliefs around myself because I was young, when I first started. So I felt like, oh, I don't have the experience to talk to people about this, or maybe I can't connect to people as well. So a couple of things, experience did help, and
Yeah,
getting rid of those beliefs that just because you're young doesn't mean you can't have a conversation with someone that is more experienced than you. One, you're the professional in the field, and you know the coverages. If you're
sure.
licensed, you already most likely know more than the other person, but you've
Exactly.
taken the time to now study what you need to prescribe to them, if we want to talk in doctor terms. I think oh gosh, what else?
Well,
That
while you're thinking, it's funny. Like, I had a trainer that worked with my dad early on. I was 20, 21 years old when I first got in. And I remember having that same negative self talk of like, I can't do this. I'm so young.
Mhm.
Now I keep a gray beard, so it's easy to know that I'm old and wise. But back then I didn't have that. I was just this baby faced kid. And I thought, man, there's no way. And I remember a guy telling me that very thing. His name was Rick Harvey. Shout out to Rick. We're going to shout people out. And he was like, bro, you have a license. They don't.
Mhm. Yep.
Even if it's 2 weeks of knowledge more than they do, more than they do. I'll never forget one time, as I'd gotten that objection several times of like, kind of teasing of like, you're just a young kid. What do you know? And da da da. And I remember one time after Rick told me that, I was like, do you have your insurance license? And the guy kind of sat back and looked at me. He was an older gentleman. And he kind of looked back at me and was like, no, I don't. And I was like, already that makes me qualified to be an agent. You
Mhm.
don't know some of the things I do. I can protect you and your business from these shortcomings, from these things. I can help you prevent having this or that, or I can help you be ready for it. And he was like, you know what, you're right, young man. And he gave me an opportunity, and I wrote the account. And years later, I finally like, okay. And I even asked that guy afterwards. I was like, can I use you as a reference point? Like if I'm talking
Awesome.
to other people, they give me the same objection. He was like, dude, you nailed that objection. So yeah, anytime you want to. So from there on out for a few years, I would be like, hey, John Doe back here told me the same thing. And I pushed back a little bit. And now I've been his agent for 5 years now, and he loves working with me. And you can call him up tomorrow and he'll tell you the same thing. Hopefully, I don't know if anybody ever called him or not, but I used it to my advantage. But again, going back to what you said, you have that. So that experience, going back to what you're saying, that experience probably will help you around the next time.
Absolutely. And it's a little bit of a teaser into what I'm going to talk about in Tennessee, because I'm going to be talking to the young agents. Is our job as insurance agents is literally just to solve the other person's problem. So when you go into it with that mentality, you're not so much worried about, well, my experience. It's like, hey, I'm just here to help you. Let's find out what your problems are. And here's the cool part is use the fact that you're young to your advantage. You are hungry. You are on top of your education. You've got fresh eyes compared to maybe somebody that has been in it for a minute. And because you are freshly educated and staying on top of that, you may know more than some of the veterans because you're listening to the news, you're up to date on any of the new highlights and things that are changing. Going back to this is why you should be talking to your reps, is now you are in front of what's new. You've got the fresh up to date news when
Right.
somebody who maybe is a little more complacent or just hasn't done that in a minute, you're now more equipped than a veteran, in the
100%.
industry. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, I think you're right on talking to those young people in that way. And I think the ones that are listening now, and again, young insurance could be young at heart or young in age or, second career, encore career, as some people say. I mean, there's a lot of different ways, but I think there's a lot to be said for that with the fresh eyes, a fresh outlook on things. And I think, no, good for you. And I think that's awesome to be able to recognize there's some things you could change that maybe you didn't do the first time, or that you recognize this might work this time around. And so I think it's awesome. And I'm, again, raising two daughters and watching my wife as a CEO of a company. And, I have a bigger heart now just seeing women in the industry and women succeed in general, and whether it's in life or in business. And so huge cheerleader for you. I have been for a long, long time. And I wish you the best. And I know a lot of people cheering you on, but as your friend, I just want you to know I'm proud of you. I love to see what you're doing, and the positive vibes you put out there is so awesome. And so thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for reaching out, and also I think this is a great time because it's Women's History Month, I believe.
Is it?
Right?
Awesome.
I think so. Gosh, I should know this, so shame on me. But I'm pretty sure that is coming up. So
that is amazing.
Good timing on perfect. That topic.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
Well, again, I think it's perfect timing to wrap up. I appreciate you taking time away from your job, your family, or everything else to visit with us here in Insurance Town. It means a lot to me personally, and I know the audience is going to love it, and they're going to be reaching out to me and have Kimmy on again. She was awesome. And if you're looking for a good metal podcast, maybe they'll revive the metal, whatever you call it, podcast.
Metal health.
Metal health. There you go. But anyhow, thanks again, dude, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.